Supriya Dwivedi, Rachel Curran, and Brad Levine are with us today. The Mayor of Toronto wants to take the Ontario government to court over legislation that will cut the number of city councillors almost in half for the upcoming October election. Premier Doug Ford says shrinking the size of council to mirror the number of provincial ridings in the city will lead to quicker decisions by government and save the taxpayers about $25 million. So, Brad, I'll start with you. What about the logistics of this? Do you think it's too late for council to try and stop this legislation?
I don't know. An injunction would probably be the only answer. But listening to some of the staff reports coming out today, suggesting that they're trying to get ready for the new regime with 25, and then if there is an injunction to go back to 47, it might be troublesome. But this is the chaos that the Ford government, thrust upon the people of Toronto, and here we are. But I think that the claims that Doug Ford is making about the benefits of Bill 5, the reduced number of seats, absolutely nothing to back up whether or not there's a $25 million in savings, no evidence whatsoever, and absolutely no examples of how by reducing the representation of the people in Canada's largest city, it would become more efficient with decision making. Absolutely no evidence whatsoever. Just fewer is better, says Doug Ford. There's lots of ways you can make the city of Toronto run better, and cutting democracy in half, making it actually longer. I think what we're going to hear over the next coming days and weeks is the case that, with 110,000 citizens within each new municipal ward, can you imagine, for the folks at home across the country who are going, there's 110,000 people in some cities. Most people live in fewer geographical areas, but there's absolutely no justification for doing this other than to settle old scores and to throw more havoc onto the city of Toronto. Interestingly,
Supriya, and I'm paraphrasing, but Doug Ford was speaking at a conference here today, and he basically said more than anything else they've done so far, he's received the most positive feedback on this decision.
Yeah, did he not see council? Every day that they've talked about this, city council has been packed, the gallery has been packed, there have been overflow rooms with people that are upset about this. So I don't know if he's just not paying attention or only talking about selective feedback that he's receiving, but there seems to be at least some sort of blatant disconnect there. And just to add to what Brad was saying about there being no substantive evidence to back up any of these claims, if it really is about, cutting this level of bureaucracy, and he feels as though, the Premier feels as though it'll be better for Democratic representation to cut down those wards, then why only Toronto? Why not Ottawa? Why not Belleville? Why not Leeds? Why not Cornwall? Why not literally every other single municipality there is? This just makes it look like he's, trying to settle old scores and looking like he's still back in 2014. And for full disclosure, I did campaign in 2014 both against Doug Ford and the Mayor, John Tory.
And Rachel, the Premier also did confirm in the same speech today that there won't be cuts to any other municipalities' council or cities' council. Does that sort of add fuel to the argument that this is about settling old scores?
No, not at all. I mean, look, valiant efforts by Supriya and Brad to criticize Doug Ford on this, but anyone who's watched a Toronto City Council meeting knows how absolutely dysfunctional that body is. Good luck finding a normal, Toronto citizen, a Toronto taxpayer, who's going to disagree with cutting the number of politicians, with making council more effective and more efficient, and with reducing bureaucracy in the city of Toronto. I mean, this is exactly the kind of thing that Doug Ford won on. It's why he got an enormous mandate from the province of Ontario. And this is, he's fulfilling his promises.
Well, not exactly what he ran on.
No, he did not promise this at all.
Wait a second, Brad. The idea of efficiency, he definitely did, but the specific promise to cut council in half was never stated in the campaign.
Sure, but he promised more efficient government, he promised more effective government, and this is exactly what he's doing in Toronto. Look, I think this is an enormously popular move with regular taxpayers. Where you're hearing the pushback is from people with entrenched interests, with people who have some connection or achieving some benefit from their connection to City Council, and they're understandably very upset about this. But Doug Ford's concern is with the regular taxpayer in the province of Ontario, and that's what he's laser focused on.
Brad?
There's no evidence, right? So Rachel makes this grand. He ran on efficiencies. Cutting city council in half will be efficient. Therefore, he's fulfilling his promise. nothing could be further from the truth. There's absolutely no evidence. Like, think of all the work that a city councillor does, right? And as a taxpayer in the city of if you want to, I'll use Rachel's term, as a taxpayer, you know, how responsive is my new city councillor going to be when there's over 110,000 people in the ward in which I live? How fast is it going to be to make my streets safer, my parks cleaner, you know, the day camps? Like, how is it possibly going to be more efficient when you're doubling the workload, doubling the amount of time that I have to now wait to talk to my councillor? If Doug Ford believes, and he said it in the speech today at the Association of Municipalities Ontario, that the municipality level is the one that has the most direct interaction with people, then how is me being put in with a whole other city worth of population going to make my life as a taxpayer any better? It's going to be more inefficient. It's going to take longer to get things done.
We only have a bit of time left, but I want to get each of Supriya and Rachel to weigh in. Supriya?
Yeah, look, I mean, I don't know if I have much more to add to this other than the fact that this wasn't campaigned on. If he had legitimately campaigned on it, and if he didn't spring this in the middle of an election, that's another thing that I think seems to be lost on a lot of his supporters on this, is the fact that he could have very easily waited until this election was over, proposed it, and then gone about it for the next time around. The fact of the matter is that this sets into chaos, I think is the word that Brad used, but really disarray with a bunch of people not knowing what's going on.
Okay, Rachel, final word to you.
Yeah, no, that's completely nonsense. Look, in my experience, bigger government is never better government. This is going to save $25 million, and I think the average Toronto taxpayer is going to experience precisely zero negative effect from this. If anything, let's hope, let's cross our fingers, tax bills may actually level off or go down a bit. So, look, Doug Ford's interest is in protecting average taxpayers. No one has been speaking for them until Doug Ford was elected. And this is a move that is both good and popular for good reasons.
All right. I have to leave it there, but thank you very much to all three of you, Rachel Curran, Supriya Dwivedi, and Brad Levine.